No one heard the question at first. The wind swallowed it, carried it across the dry plains, and buried it somewhere between the creaking fence posts and the groan of the old barn. But the woman standing in front of the cowboy heard it clearly, and for a moment the entire world seemed to hold its breath. The cowboy's name was Eli Carter, though most people in the nearby town just called him the lowly one. He was the man given the hardest jobs, the one paid last and blamed first. His clothes were always dustier than everyone else's, his boots cracked, his hat bent out of shape, as if even it had given up trying to look proud. Eli had learned long ago to keep his head down and his voice low. Questions led to trouble, curiosity led to pain, and touching had always been something the world did to him, never something he was allowed to offer. Yet here he was, standing in front of Clara Whitmore, asking a question he never thought he'd dare to speak aloud. Clara Whitmore did not belong on a ranch like this. Everyone knew it. She was the daughter of a powerful landowner back east, sent west after a scandal no one talked about openly. She carried herself with a quiet dignity that made even the ranch hands straighten. Their backs when she passed, her hands were soft, her eyes thoughtful, and there was a sadness in her that didn't scream for attention but lingered like a shadow at sunset. Eli had been told, very clearly, to stay away from her. The first time he saw Clara, she was standing near the corral, watching a horse refuse to be broken. The animal bucked and screamed and the other men laughed, placing bets. Clara didn't laugh. She looked like she might cry. That was the moment Eli noticed her, not because she was beautiful, though she was, but because she looked like someone who understood what it meant to be cornered. Their paths crossed again and again in small, quiet ways, a shared glance by the well, a nod near the barn. Once, when Clara dropped her book in the dirt, Eli picked it up and brushed it clean without a word. Their fingers didn't touch, but the space between them felt electric, frightening, and alive. Eli didn't trust that feeling. Life had taught him that warmth came with a cost. Eli's childhood had been carved from hardship. Orphaned young, he'd been passed from one cruel household to another, learning quickly that kindness was rare and conditional. By the time he was old enough to work, he believed that his worth was measured only by how much pain he could endure without complaint. Ranch life suited him in that way. Animals didn't judge. The land didn't ask questions, simply demanded effort. Clara, on the other hand, had grown up surrounded by comfort but starved of affection. Her world had been one of expectations. In silence, where every smile was practiced and every touch felt like a transaction. The scandal that sent her west, though never named, had left her wary of people, especially men who looked at her like she was something to be claimed. When she first noticed Eli, she noticed what he didn't do. Didn't stare. He didn't try to impress her. He didn't treat her like a prize or a problem. He treated her like air present, necessary, but never demanding. That was what made him dangerous. Their real conversation began on a day. The sky broke open. A sudden storm rolled in while Eli was repairing a fence far from the main house. Cracked so close it rattled his bones. He was halfway back to the barn when he saw Clara struggling with a frightened horse, rain plastering her dress to her legs. Without thinking, Eli ran to help. Together, they calmed the animal, Eli murmuring softly, Clara holding the reins with shaking hands. When the horse finally stilled, they stood there, breathless, soaked, and alone. That was brave, Clara said. Eli shrugged. Just didn't want him hurt. Or you. She studied him then, really looked at him, as if seeing him for the first time. You always look out for others, she said, but no one ever looks out for you. The words hit him harder than the storm. After that, the distance between them shrank, though neither could say how. They began to talk about the land, about books, about memories that hurt too much to name directly. They spoke in metaphors and half-truths, careful not to cross lines they didn't yet understand, but the ranch understood before they did. Whispers spread, glances sharpened. The foreman warned Eli to remember his place. She's not like you, he said, not unkindly, but firmly.
Ow.
Don't make trouble. Eli nodded as he always did. Trouble found him anyway. One evening, Clara twisted her ankle near the far pasture. Eli was the first to reach her. He knelt beside her, hands hovering, unsure. That was when the question escaped him, trembling and honest. "What happens if I touch you?" he asked. Clara didn't laugh. She didn't pull away. She looked at his hands, hands calloused and scarred him, then up into his eyes. "I don't know," she said. "What do you think will happen?" Eli swallowed. I think I'll be reminded that I'm human." Something in her face softened. "Then touch me," she said quietly. "Not because you're allowed, but because you're kind." He helped her up, his hand steady at her elbow. The world didn't end. The sky didn't fall. What happened was smaller and bigger all at once. Two wounded people realized they were not alone. Their closeness did not go unnoticed. When the ranch owner returned, the consequences were swift. Clara was forbidden from seeing Eli. Eli was accused of overstepping, of forgetting his place. He was offered a choice: leave quietly or stay and suffer. For the first time in his life, Eli hesitated. Clara found him that night by the barn. "They're sending me away," she said. "Back east. Where I'll disappear?" Eli felt the familiar weight settle on his chest. The certainty that happiness was not meant for people like him. "You deserve better," he said. "Someone who can stand beside you without shame." Clara shook her head. "I deserve someone who sees me," she said. "And you already do." Eli made a decision that terrified him more than any storm or beating ever had. He chose himself. The next morning, he stood in front of the ranch owner and spoke not loudly, not angrily, but clearly. He told the truth about his work, about his respect, about his right to exist with dignity.
Others listened.
Some scoffed, but a few just enough heard him. Clara left the ranch, but not in defeat. Letters followed, filled with hope and fear and possibility. Eli found work elsewhere. Places where his hands were valued and his voice not dismissed. Years later, when Eli stood at the edge of a different field, watching Clara walk toward him, he remembered that question. "What happens if I touch you?" Answer, he had learned, was simple and profound. Sometimes, when you dare to reach out, you don't lose your place in the world. You finally find it.